while being rather corrupt. And this is really just something which is not, corruption can't be described as a fundamental impediment to growth. That argument used to be around 20 years ago. It then, I think, went through a different phase, but now it's, as it were, being regurgitated. And for example, Professor Mushtaq Khan at SOAS over the road here has written about this very widely, and he's a very impressive exponent of the argument. And as a matter of fact, I agree with the point of view that corruption is clearly not an impediment to economic growth. You can't really argue that in the context of China. China is very corrupt, but it has a phenomenal rate of economic growth. The point in those contexts, from an anti-corruption perspective, is an argument, in my view, that it's very dangerous to the whole socio-economic, socio-political system. And if you take a country like South Korea, which has been a very successful developer, then nonetheless it's also true that corruption is a very hot issue in South Korea. 2 prime ministers have been jailed on corruption charges, and another committed suicide before he could go to court. So this is not exactly a light issue. And I think that we need to refine the arguments about corruption and growth much more precisely. I think it's very important to understand that much more fully. So those are some reasons why there are kind of roadblocks to a real advance, in my view. And then the final one is the issue of secrecy jurisdictions, by which I include the whole offshore business. But offshore is now refined in a rather different way. I think that offshore really means a whole legal structure in which you disguise the real ownership of assets. So that it's not just a question of does somebody have an account in the British Virgin Islands. It's a question of whether or not actually in the British Virgin Islands there's an account, but that account is ultimately owned by a trust.